easy on yourself at the start. Pace yourself. A lot of people rush at the start and put unnecessary pressure on themselves physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So my advice would be go easy on yourself. I'm really clear there's no right way to walk, and I don't believe it's for anybody else to question or make judgment on someone's pilgrimage. We all have our own reasons, and people will often quote health reasons. My father would often ask people, what's the difference between a pilgrimage and a hike? And many people have a different answer, but a universal truth is that there is a difference. If somebody needs the security of an organization, a company to support them in order to feel confident to make that leap, to spend that time on the path, then wonderful. I guess what we can take as wisdom from the other side of the argument, the people who just arrive with their bag and don't book and don't plan, is that that is still possible. So if that is possible, then all the other support is a bonus. Layers. I'm all about layers. Lots and lots of layering. I think is really important for warmth, because as you walk you will get warm and then you need more layers to put on as soon as you stop.
Welcome, pilgrims. Thank you for watching us again. This is Efrain Mendoza from the Way to Your Way podcast. And today we have a really, really special guest. She's the daughter of John Brierley. He has been helping millions of pilgrims around the world through Camino guides. And those are those special guides where you look into those and you can recognize all the routes, all the things that you're going to be doing to the Camino. And he was able to mix that component from the Camino and also the spiritual part. So we're going to be talking with Gemma about that. And now she's having that role, and she's the one that continues doing the great work that he was able to do. And so welcome, Gemma. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. That's quite an introduction.
Okay. Well, I would like to know, so a little bit about you. Can you tell me a little bit about you?
A little bit about me. I imagine you mean a little bit about me and how I became involved in the Camino guides. As you said already, my father wrote guidebooks to the Caminos, and while he had already written his first guide when I walked my first Camino, I did it just for myself. At 18 I left school, and that was the first time I took to the path with, I think, the second edition of our guide. And despite pursuing my own career in psychotherapy, somehow I could never quite stay away from the Camino for very long. I walked many times a number of routes on my own with friends, and began to help my father a little bit in the updating and maintenance of them. And somehow that role just continued to grow. And here we are, I think, over 15 years later from me really becoming involved in the work. And I feel so grateful that I have the opportunity to do that.
Okay. You mentioned that you were 18 years old the first time that you walked?
Yeah, 18 years the first time I walked, yeah.
Okay. And your dad walked the first Camino 15 years ago or more?
No, over 25 years ago, the first time he walked. And it took many years to bring the first guide into fruition and into print. And by the time I walked, we were already on the second edition at least. So yeah, it's been a long, long time.
Okay. And I was reading, if I'm not mistaken, I was reading some information when your father used to walk that first Camino. Was kind of curiosity. And I believe that happened in close to San Jean Pied de Port, that he just was going through other pilgrims that were walking, and he started walking behind them. And that made curiosity for him. Is that correct?
Yes, that's how he discovered it. We'd left, he'd become disillusioned with his work in business in the city in Dublin where we lived as a family, and took a sabbatical a year out, and our whole family driving around Europe in a camper van for a year. And at some point near Saint-Jean in the Pyrenees, he saw these lines of people walking and wondered, who are they? Where are they going? What are they doing? And following and speaking to some people, he very literally stumbled onto the route and something some curiosity really took hold. And after we got back, he then went and walked himself from Saint Jean. That was his first.
Yeah, and
Camino.
that make like a big change on his life,
Mm-hmm.
because before that, I believe that he used to work a lot and stress and all that. So, and now he do, the Camino, because you have walked, we can talk about that. It's like something magical. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but it transformed the life of everyone who walks the Camino.
Yeah, I agree. Even if they don't plan on it doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. My wife just came back, and actually, that's how I find out about you, because I was knew about the guy, but never paid that attention. But my wife, she was walking the Camino 2 months ago, and she started looking into your guys, into Camino guys, and she say, "Well, those guys are amazing. You need to contact her," and that's why we met. And she actually was really, really happy with the explanation of all that are in the books. She said that the guys are very, very well. So congratulations for all that work that you are doing, and your dad used to do it as well. So you have been doing amazing.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, and you mentioned that it took you a little bit between the time that your father used to start walking the Camino and the time of the production of that first guy. Do you remember how many years took?
It took him from first walking. Well, he first walked not planning to write a guide for starters, so he walked just for himself. And as you say, it was a big part of a big transformational part of his life. And then he's spoken a lot, and there's many interviews and many videos that can be found of him telling the detail of this story. But he then felt called to write a guide, and he was pondering this question when a neighbour handed, knowing he'd walked and was passionate about the Caminos, a newspaper article that was titled "What is the best guide to the Camino?" And he had this real reaction on reading that of thinking, the guide to what Camino? And not just thinking the path, but whether this was about the inner path or the physical path, and actually realizing that so many guides focused on the physical path you walked, but there's another path, the inner journey, which you talk about so often in one of your communications. So the idea grew, I guess, relatively slowly. So that's one reason for the time lag. The other is the practicalities of making a guide at a time, we're talking probably 30 years ago when he first walked, when facilities were not the same, GPS tracking was not the same, and many years of walking, his early trackers were mileometers on the wheel of a bike was the most accurate way. But so often he'd be pushing the bike, because anyone who's walked will know there's not always that easy. So years of actually collecting the information and the mapping and having to go back if things were not quite accurate. So before even finding a publisher, and it was a long process. It was a labor of love till the first book came into fruition as print. Many years.
And how old were you when that first guy went published?
I would have been probably in my early teens when the first guide was published.
18.
And then the second edition when I walked at 18, yeah.
Okay. And do you have any idea how many books were sold at that time? How many guys?
Oh, hardly any at the time, but hardly anyone walked at the time. Numbers on the routes were, the first guide was published in 2003, and numbers were not what they are today back then. There was not very many people walking. There was, not many people buying books back then.
Yeah, and it's amazing the job that you have been doing, because I was talking the other day about the Caminos, and then it popped up information that there are routes that even called like the Brierley route. So does that mean that the different accommodations are based on that experience from your dad and from you now? So that's amazing. Okay. And being walking the Camino with your dad, what you used to help him when you start walking?
Well, initially I was walking not with him, but on my own. And then because I was walking for the love of the walking, I began updating a bit. I was very into photography more so than him. So I began more on the design side, redesigning the covers and more the image side. And then just we have guides to a number of routes, and covering the ground for each edition takes a lot of time. So I began to help with that. So it happened slowly and organically. I always intended to stop, but I could never quite leave it be.
Yeah, it's difficult because there is too much information about the Camino, and you go and go and go, and you find new things and new things ever. Always.
Absolutely. And the second you walk and you find something, someone will open a new cafe the day after you passed, or it's always changing. So.
Or someone new to talk about it, and if you are in the Camino and you talk with someone, it's like I don't know, the happiness that is all around. People is really excited to talk. You can keep talking and talking on a cafe, and you forget that you are even walking sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, do you have any idea how many kilometers have you walked?
I have no idea. I don't even know how many Caminos I've walked. I counted once, and I think I got to 14, but that was a few years ago, and goodness knows how many now.
Okay. So you don't have any idea. Well, that's amazing.
I lost count many years ago.
Okay, and then have you walked from? Do you know there's a Camino also from the Camino Inglés? Have you walked from Ireland as well?
So there is, if you mean the route in Bray, the waymarked route from Bray. So I'm from Ireland. I was born in Dublin. So I spend a good amount of time in Ireland, and I have great respect for the Irish society who have waymarked the route from Bray. So I haven't actually done the Bray Camino, but I'm really fascinated by it. But I've walked the Camino Inglés many times.
Okay. From both Ferrol?
From both, from Ferrol, from A Coruña, yeah, for sure.
Okay. So that's nice. And have you been, I imagine that you have been on Finisterre too, right?
Of course. That holds a very special place in my heart, for sure, Finisterre.
Yeah. Well, that's an experience. I've been walking the Francés and the Costa Portuguese, but I've been also and the small section. I have not ever walked the long sections. My wife did it just recently for the Francés, but I've been in different places around the Camino through Spain, and you see all around, all the views, all the people walking, and that's kind of experience. So, and I have the opportunity also this year to go to a convention or gathering between the American Pilgrims on the Camino and the Canadian Company of Pilgrims. That was in Canada, and there were about 400 pilgrims, and the emotion from everybody that during those 3-4 days that we were there, you cannot know how much do they can provide as a positive information always. Okay, so walking you and the Camino, and then you are a psychotherapist as well, and the Camino has so much for life. And I would say that one of the best definitions that someone told me about the Camino is that the Camino is the university of life. Because everything that happened in the Camino, you can also replicate your life. Of course, not in the same way, but you can do that as well. So being you a psychotherapist, how do you say that a Camino can help a person during their life?
Well, because I'm a psychotherapist, I would say there's no one answer to that question. But if I had to try and find a single answer, I've thought about this a lot, and you're not the first person to ask me. And I think there is something about the space that is created in therapy and on the Camino, which is a space that allows time for reflection, and also something about the change of pace that again happens in both, that makes that time for reflection more possible. As well as, I think there is often something about the intentionality. You don't go for psychotherapy unless you're intending to think about yourself and life, and usually with some question. And my father would often ask people, what is the difference between a pilgrimage and a hike? And many people have a different answer, but a universal truth is that there is a difference. There is something intentional about pilgrimage that does include an inner journey that is different from just going on a hike. There's something that draws people to these routes, which are often so far away from where people live, that I think is part of the intentionality that helps create that space for reflection. So what people will discover will be different for everybody, but there's something universal about the experience of the time and the holding space that allows you to reflect, I think.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect answer. And
Mhm.
and then so what I would say also that those similarities that happen on the Camino, you can translate those to your life, to your work, and there are too many decisions that are similarity when you are walking. So you know what you may be facing once you start walking, but not necessarily it's going to be the same once you start walking.
Absolutely.
And when you are working, it's about the same as well. So you may have a plan, but that
Yeah,
plan cannot happen accordingly when you expect it to happen.
absolutely. And I think what you touch on then is another element I would add is there's something about it bringing you into the present. Because, like you say, you have to deal with the day ahead of you, and you have to walk, and you have to find food, and you have to find somewhere to sleep. And that is very much something that has to bring you present. You have to be in that day. And also, I think part of that is there's a stripping away of things that are not important and a distilling down to what really matters, which happens day to day when you realize what you really need to carry on your back. If you're going to lug it halfway across Spain, you'd better be only bringing things that matter. And there's so much that we think we need that is definitely superfluous and we don't need. And when you suddenly have to carry it for a few 100 kilometers, you realize certain things can be left behind. And that's in a physical sense. But I guess the same thing can happen on an emotional level of it can help people through that process to think about what is really important to them and what is not.
Yeah, actually, yes. And it's really important thinking twice before you take it with you that you really are going to need that.
That you're really going to need that, yeah.
So that's really important. And then I have a question for you because you are the perfect person to ask that because you have so many experience about the Camino that you know that there are different ways of walking the Camino.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that walk the Camino that they decided I'm gonna carry the backpack with me all the time. Everything that I'm gonna carry on the Camino, I'm gonna have it with me every day. There is other people that decided to do it with a company that take care of the luggage that is transporting that from one to the other one. People that say that they needed to carry with them, they say, "Well, I need to carry with me because that's something that I need to live, feel." But there are other people that say, "Well, I still walk in the Camino. I'm not carrying with me that, but I'm still on there." So, what would you say between those two differences?
Oh, that for me, I'm really clear. There's no right way to walk, and I don't believe it's for anybody else to question or make judgment on someone's pilgrimage. We all have our own reasons, and people will they'll often quote health reasons. My father, after his cancer diagnosis, the last year that he walked was actually the first year he used a transport service for his bag because he was terminally ill. And people will often find that an acceptable reason, but there's many reasons. And if somebody needs the security of an organization, a company to support them in order to feel confident to make that leap, to spend that time on the path, then wonderful. If that makes it more accessible to more people, then for me, I think you can still have an incredibly deep experience on the Camino. Not everybody is capable, and I don't just mean physically. Some people, it might feel too daunting to just set foot carrying your possessions, not knowing where you would stay one night to the next. And if you can walk that way, fabulous. And if you need a different experience, then that's for you to decide and nobody else.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. So pilgrims, that there is the way that you decided, that is going to be totally fine. The important thing is that you enjoy it, what you are doing, and that you
and
take
you
the
get
most
what
of
you
that
need.
experience.
Yeah, it's for everyone to get. It's everybody's own pilgrimage. It's their pilgrimage, their Camino. It's not for anyone else to say.
And what would you say that once someone do the Camino, walk the Camino, most of the time that person want to repeat the Camino? What would you say that?
You and me both. I'm still here, nearly 20 years later. I hear you.
And then those Caminos, because you walk when you walk the most during the summertime, spring, or fall.
Listen, I think that an amazing experience can be had at any time of year. I walk every year at different times, and for me now it will often depend on, a deadline with a publisher might mean I need to walk at a certain time. So I will choose for many different reasons, but I think in terms of if I was to offer advice of a time, there's benefits and challenges to every time of year. So it depends on what experience people are looking for. The winter can be more challenging, very possible, but more challenging. But also if people are looking for a more solitary experience, that's can be a great time for that. The summer can be very busy, although the autumn and the spring, interestingly, they used to be the quiet shoulder seasons. And now the secret seems to be out that that's wonderful weather and quiet on the path. So strangely, the autumn and the spring are often the busiest now. And I've found more space in albergues in the summer because everyone is trying to go out of season and now walking in the spring and the autumn. So yeah, and heat, depending on what people can tolerate. So every time of year has a different feeling, and it depends what you're after.
Okay. And you mentioned that you have walked during the winter time, correct? Okay. Have you walked the Frances during winter?
I haven't walked the whole Frances during winter, and the mountains, this is a different thing, and you might need to take a lower route in the winter. But I've walked, I've walked the Inglés in snow, and it's different, and it's quiet, and the paths are solitary, but it can be beautiful in its own way.
Okay, and because I have a question, because you already have walked that with the snow and all that, and how you keep warm during winter time, because you are just going to step snow and all that, and how you keep dry inside with all that cold weather outside.
Layers. I'm all about layers. Lots and lots of layering, I think, is really important for warmth, because as you walk, you will get warm and then you need more layers to put on as soon as you stop. So I'd say lots of different layers of clothing would be my key advice. And your feet and your extremities hold a lot. You lose a lot of heat through your extremities. Warm hats, warm gloves, warm feet.
Okay, and how much more time would you say that in a normal day you need to add during winter time comparing with a spring or another time of the year?
So again, that's very individual as an answer. But the question I would ask instead is thinking about daylight. So the one thing that I think people should consider when walking in winter is not necessarily how far they can walk, but how much of the day they will have daylight to walk in. So everyone should reduce the distance they're planning to walk, because to be aware of the daylight, I think.
Okay. And with all the experience that you have been walking all those Caminos, do you have anything that you say, wow, I saw, well, you have probably have too many things that you have seen, that something that you wanted to tell other people? But what would you say? Something that came to your memory, you say, oh, that was something amazing that I live at the Camino.
There are so many. And this is probably coming to my mind because we're talking about cold weather, but I remember being on the Camino Finisterre, but I was with one friend and we had walked from Santiago to Muxia, and then we were going on to Finisterre, and they had resurfaced some roads, and so arrows had been erased. This was in maybe 2008, so a long time ago, and not very many people walked, and there was not really many waymarks or directions in that direction. Our guide talked about the route from Finisterre to Muxia, but I was walking it backwards with my friend, and the mist came in and the arrows were gone and we were completely lost. And then the next thing, a car drove past us quite slowly, and the woman in there wound down the window, and I tried to ask directions to find our way back on the path, and she was explaining, but it was quite complicated. In the end, after a few minutes, she just got out of her car, opened the back door, grabbed my friend by her shoulder and her rucksack and pushed her into the back seat with her bag on, grabbed me, pushed me onto the back seat next to her, shut the door, drove us 10 minutes, opened the door and pulled us out right in front of an arrow. And we were dripping wet and her car was soaked, and just the generosity of people. I've had many experiences like that over the years of both pilgrims helping pilgrims, but also local people just showing such generosity on the route. I would say experiences like that come to my mind.
Yeah. I remember once that in a restaurant, they provided sandwich for the pilgrims free.
Yeah.
You don't need to buy anything, and were like this big, those sandwiches. So, and they are giving those free to people. Of course, when pilgrims go there, they are also consume something in there. But even if you don't, you have that free as well.
Yeah, I think what you're touching on is the intention is just this generosity and this support of people who are taking on this endeavor. I think is really beautiful.
Yes. And I've been having a chance, having the podcast, I've been having a chance to talk with so many people around. And one of the person that I spoke with was someone from a restaurant on the coastal Portuguese Camino. Or actually, it's the Portuguese Camino, because you know that those sometimes they merge. It was part of already the Portuguese Camino. And her cafe, she was talking to me, and with so much emotion and all the experiences that she had through all the life with all those pilgrims that she helped. And I remember that one of the questions that I asked to her was, how many coffees do you sell in a day? And she mentioned about 300 coffees just in one day. And it's just coffee there, because there are people that even don't consume coffee. And so you know how much people go in a day to the restaurant. And then there is another one in the Frances on Melide. You know, in Melide they eat a lot of octopus.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked one of the guys from the restaurant, say, how many octopus do you sell per day in the peak season? And he mentioned, well, I don't know on quantity of octopus, but during the summertime, we may sell here 2 tons of octopus a day.
It's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Wow. So, and then other question, what do be your advices? What are kind of advices you will give to someone that, or the main advice, because there are too many advices that you can give, but the main ones to someone that don't know anything about the Camino and are just starting to consider what the Camino, besides buying the Camino guides?
It's hard to think of one piece of advice and
Okay.
that I would give. I guess one piece of advice that we list in our guide, we have a long section about planning and preparation, aimed as well at people who might be nervous and unsure. So a lot of information. But at the end, we end that advice with a final note, which is whatever you do, don't forget to start. Just begin. You can think and you can plan. And if you've never walked the Camino before, so much of it will make no sense before you set foot on the path. And when you do set foot on the path, everything will come into place and you will find what you need. So don't forget to start. Don't be so caught up in planning and questioning that you forget to actually walk.
Yeah, well, that's a very, very important advice. And that made me remind that, not most, there are a lot of people that start planning, start thinking it's like a dream going to the Camino, but the reality, they never put it in reality. So that is so far away from now. And sometimes maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 years before they actually say, I'm going to go to the Camino. I would say also, don't postpone your plans. If you already think and look into the Camino, try to find a way to do it in the next year at least.
Yeah.
Because things may happen. Life change. And what you may can do right now, you may not be able to do it at a later time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also to go back to our conversation about the different facilities and support on offer now, companies like your own that help to arrange details for people. I guess what we can take as wisdom from the other side of the argument, the people who just arrive with their bag and don't book and don't plan, is that is still possible. So if that is possible, then all the other support is a bonus. But actually, like you say, there might not need to be a need to delay. Like, begin to walk and the answers will become clear. Like, you'll find out the support is there. It's many of the Caminos now, not all routes, but many of the Caminos now, the infrastructure and support for pilgrims and the waymarking is so clear that I think they really are a lot more accessible to people now than they were once upon a time.
Yes. And going back to that point before, and the person that I mentioned to you the other day that was walking the Camino that I interviewed was Lori Dennett. And she, the first time that she walked was in 1986.
Yeah, very different story.
She walked from the Chartres Cathedral in France all the way to Santiago. And she mentioned to me on her interview that by that time there were she just saw about 12 to 16 pilgrims in all the way. I believe that she walked about 75 days. And nowadays it's totally different.
And for people looking for that experience, there are routes that are very different. And even sections of route, like I know that you're very familiar with the Camino Portuguese, and even the section from Lisbon to Porto compared to from Porto to Santiago, there are many routes and many sections of even well-known routes where there is still a very different experience to be found, if that's what people are looking for.
Yes. Last year, that almost 500,000 people walked the Camino that we know record of because of the pilgrim office has those records. But they say there is a lot more people that walk because there are people that do not go all the way to Santiago. And then now, with the new rule from the pilgrim office that now you don't need to walk those last 100 kilometers. You just need the last 20 or 25 kilometers. But then the other 75, if you do 100, you can do it in another section of the Camino. So, and I believe that that's a great idea because that's going to descongest at least 80 of those kilometers of the last part because there was too much traffic around when you are approaching. There are people also that ask me about that, but I also explain them, well, it's like you are going, if you live in a small town, probably you're not going to have traffic. But if you're approaching to a city, you're going to see that traffic start growing and growing once you start approaching to the city. Well, it's kind of the same. When you are approaching to Santiago, you're going to see more traffic because you're very close. Okay. And since you have been so many times in Santiago, when you approach to that cathedral, when you are in the cathedral, in front of the cathedral, you have like too many emotions that came to your mind at the same time. And I believe that because you have been several times, every time you see something different. And I'm correct?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But one of the things that I will never, ever tire of is also watching people arrive. I love to sit right at the edge of the plaza and just sit and watch. There's something so beautiful about just the sheer expression of human emotion that happens in that square in front of that cathedral. And I don't think I will ever tire or ever take for granted watching people walk in, feeling it myself, but also just watching people arrive with no idea their stories or where they came from. But it's a special place, and I don't think any amount of times arriving will ever change that.
Yeah, so you're right. You can sit there for hours,
Yeah,
just seeing everyone, just the happiness, jumping, so dancing. Too many things that people do at that time. So it's the emotion, crying,
like
and
seeing people who they haven't seen for weeks and weeks and bumping into them and the reunions and the emotion, like people who happen to meet on the path. It's really beautiful. It's the best side of humanity, I think.
yeah. And the 3 times that I've been there, I go the day that I arrive, find my certificate, the pilgrim office. Then I came back again to see the cathedral, and then I go to the mass, and then I go outside again. And even the next day that I'm leaving Santiago, I'm going early in the morning before I'm going to also see the cathedral again.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And this time, my wife and I know because I saw the pictures. She was able to go very early in the morning to the cathedral, and she was able to see the horses. You know, the horses went very early in the morning when they arrived to Santiago.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it was
Amazing,
really nice.
amazing. Yeah.
But do you have any particular memories with your dad when you were walking the Camino that you would like to share?
Oh, again, so many, too many to share in one. But I think if I had to pick just one, it would be actually watching him leave for a Camino. When he ceased treatment for cancer. But the joy and the excitement and I can picture him with putting on his big rucksack and walking away from the door and just giving a big thumbs up and heading out on the path. And the life force that brought was just amazing. I think there is a really special energy on the Camino. And that was a really clear example of it for me. It was like he left all the cares behind. His bag was heavier, but what he carried was much lighter when he set foot on the path. It was very healing.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have so many good memories, and then talking because you are the Caminos. When you are the Caminos, you have happiness, a lot of information, a lot of things, spirituality, very, very, very good vibe, and so that's a great experience. And what advice, as a final advice, what advice do you tell someone that wanted to walk the Camino?
Again, it's so difficult to think of one single advice. I don't think I can narrow it down to one single piece of advice. General advice would be you'll pack too much because everybody does. So that's fine. But know that you will. That on a practical front, go easy. In fact, maybe I would say this on a practical and emotional and spiritual front. My advice, one piece of universal advice I would give to everybody is go easy on yourself at the start. Pace yourself. A lot of people rush at the start and put unnecessary pressure on themselves physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So my advice would be go easy on yourself. Take your time. Let yourself ease into it. You'll be amazed how familiar you'll become with a pattern and a routine, and how energized and strong your physical and spiritual muscles will become as you walk. But take your time. Pace yourself at the start. Don't put undue pressure on yourself, and then give yourself unnecessary strain, physically or emotionally. Go easy. Ease in. Let the Camino take its time. The Camino is not about rushing. A great gift of the Camino is the fact that in a world that is so fast, it slows us down. So my advice would be lean into that and take it easy. You'll get there.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And last question for you today. How would you define the Camino de Santiago?
Oof, that's a big one. And there is what comes to my mind is there is something undefinable about the Camino. And I think that is also a testament to that is how important it's been to people for how long. So there's something about the Camino that is deeply healing and deeply transformative, and that has been true throughout centuries. And it's as true now in modern times as it was in medieval times. But there is something unique about the Camino and about pilgrimage that transcends all of that, all of the time and the context that it's in, that it just quietly goes about its work, and that people have found joy and meaning and purpose from it through so many different ages. And that maybe makes it quite hard to define because it's quite unique in itself. It's not really an answer because it's too hard to define.
Yeah, it's really hard to define the Camino because it's too many things.
It's too many things to
Yeah, and I found a definition from someone that it has a she has a YouTube channel as well, and she mentioned the Camino definition like she made like I don't know, like 100 or more words. So the Camino is everything.
Yeah.
So, and then the emotion, how that person is describing that, that also add more value to the Camino as well.
Yeah. And I guess the Camino will be to everybody what it needs to be, and that will be different for everybody who walks it. But on the Camino, I think everyone will find challenge, and because they find challenge, they'll find a feeling of achievement, and everyone will find community, because as this moving band of pilgrims and the local people who support them, there is so much community there. So people will find struggle and achievement and community and space, I think, are quite universal experiences. And it will be for everyone what it needs to be.
Wow, that's great. And then how many different guides do you have?
Well, we have a number of different guides. We have also different guides. We have full guides with a lot of information, and we have maps only guides for people who want really basic information. But we cover the Portuguese, the Francés, Finisterre and Murcia, the Inglés, the Invierno and Sanabres. So we have a number of routes. And yeah, for people who are nervous, our fuller guides have a lot more information. And for people who want less information, we have just maps as well. So there's a number of options.
And those guides that you offer are just paper books, or you also are going to be thinking and going digital?
Well, yeah. So no, they're only paper. And I think I'm asked often how we've adapted to the digital world, and my answer, I guess, would be we haven't, but that isn't by accident. There's some fabulous apps out there. There's people who want that. There are lots of apps that do what apps do very well. And I think we offer something different. And for those who are actually looking for some space and a way to disconnect a little bit from that and not accidentally see a work email pop up on their phone when they're opening an app, we offer something different. So a great respect to the amazing apps that have been created, but we have purposefully not gone a digital route. We have ebooks available that you can download on your phone or on your Kindle, but they're old school, and they're old school on purpose for those who want that opportunity to disconnect a little bit.
Okay. And any place where you recommend that someone can buy your guides?
They're available in a lot. You can buy them in the cathedral in Santiago. If you're starting out, they have all of the main guides in there in the shop. You can buy them online from our website, from a number of online retailers. If you do a quick internet search, they're very readily available.
Yeah. Well, that has been amazing that you have been able to help millions of pilgrims around the world during so many years. And people recommended that guide, so that means a lot for everyone. So
well, thank you. But it's the Camino. The guides are popular because the Camino is popular. I don't think that my dad would be very clear that, and you mentioned about people talking about Brierley's roots and Brierley's this, and he, you might have noticed me make a face when you said that, but I think because for him, the popularity is not so much about the guides, it's about the Camino. It's the Camino that deserves the praise. He was able to make it more accessible to a lot of people, partly also through the way we word our maps are quite different. We make them because, as we said, a pilgrimage and a long distance walk are different, which also means that not every pilgrim is a hiker. So our maps are not conventional maps, intentionally to be accessible to people who might not have the skills to read a map and might not be comfortable with that. So his intention was to support people, to make the Camino more accessible, and to encourage people to feel supported, to see it as an inner and an outer journey. But the Camino is the one who did the magic. The books are just a vehicle to help people get there.
okay, that's good. And you're still having time to balance your time between the guides and also your psychotherapy?
Yes, well, now it's maintenance. So I'm not making any new guides. I'm not making any new routes. So now it's maintenance. And my husband helps me walk. So we share the walking. And
Okay.
that's a nice treat. What an amazing privilege to have work that allows me to have regular time on a pilgrimage.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. I'm super happy with what I'm doing too as well. Everything that I'm doing is related to the Camino.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's something that you have a lot of joy. So doing that, because you're also helping others. So that's something very gratifying.
Yeah. It's a real gift, a real privilege.
Well, thank you very much, Gemma, for today's conversation. And for you, pilgrims, thank you for watching us today. And please keep adding your comments on the comment sections and let us know what other episodes you would like to see. That way we can invite other guests. And then, buen camino, as always.